So I'm having to speak quite quietly because it's fairly late at night. I'm still trying to get into the habit of not being so gripped by this work late at night. However, I do need to give myself the forgiveness that I am inherently a creative person, and some of my best ideas do tend to come online when I'm a little bit more active mentally. But I just wanted to share like 3 of my main breakthroughs or like insights, because there's been quite a few this week. One of them is that I've realised that I've been aiming at the wrong thing slightly. I've been talking about building a stable creative life, a grounded, sustainable creative life, but creative life, an artist's life, isn't stable all the time, and it never has been. And there needs to be some acceptance of that, because creative life is inherently cyclical. It is emotional, it can be unpredictable. So trying to make it fully stable all the time is actually designing against reality. There has to be that balance of some, I don't even want to call it chaos, but unpredictability mixed with the things that we can do to structure it, right? So the goal with my work over time isn't stability, isn't just stability, it's continuity. It's allowing this closed loop system, which I call the self-led practice, to allow an understanding of the conditions that result in a sustainable creative life, daily anchors that do stabilize, the continuity practice which sustains the life through a barrage, whatever the word is, across a whole bunch of emotional states and fluctuations. And there's something that I'm calling the way back, which is the restoration, when you lose your way entirely and are not within the practice anymore. There are certain things we can do, and we all have individual ones that are restorative and will bring us back into the practice. For example, as an artist, if you've been away on holiday, if something in your life has uprooted you, you're not feeling creative, you're in a strange headspace, the way back as a restorative practice for you could be to listen to an album that feels really inspiring, or listen to an old piece of work that you wrote a few years ago, to reconnect with you, who you really are and who you used to be. Maybe as a nostalgia trip, or watching a film that evokes creativity in you. That could be the way back. But that whole system, it's not just about stability, it's about continuity. It's about accepting that a creative life is inherently unstable sometimes. A creative life is inherently unpredictable. So it's not, how do I stay stable all the time? Not even how do I stay consistent all the time. It's more, how do I stay connected to my creative work, even when my life disrupts everything? That's the key here. Another update is my system, the self-led practice, is only half the picture, the internal system that I've built. The system that I've built so far, the self-led practice with grad's conditions, daily anchors, the continuity practice, and the way back, is actually an internal system. It's the artist's internal system. It will help regulate artists, it will help them access creativity, it helps them return when they fall off, but it doesn't fully account yet for the external world. It doesn't account yet for things like work schedules, or money, or time fragmentation, or life events, or external pressure. So what I'm seeing through these interviews is that a lot of creative breakdown is not just internal. It's the collision between internal creative systems and external life conditions. So the self-led artist in the long term can't just be an internal practice. It has to be a dual system. It has to be internal and external. But right now I'm in phase 1 of the building and I'm just in the internal, and that's okay. That's an iterative process that will just live there for a while until that's robust enough and tried and tested with my research. But long term it must be external. Yeah, and the third one I've written is, I do understand my mission a lot clearer. I'm trying to design systems that allow creative life to survive real life, and I'm just at the first phase of that. So systems, my system, the self-led practice, I want to ensure that it doesn't break when things get messy in a life, when things get emotional or unpredictable, but they actually adapt to those conditions. So this is all about adaptability, and the systems that I create are called adaptive return systems for that reason. It's not about control, it's about adaptability. So for creatives and artists, this feels like a completely different kind of framework or system than I've ever seen before offered. It's a system for life. It's a life system. It's creative life design, or the field that I'm looking to define is called, I'm calling it creative life architecture, because when that dual system is locked in and the surrounding area, many years into the future with enough research behind me, that's going to be a big game changer for creatives and artists. Yeah, so it's all becoming a lot more real now. I'm starting to see what the real problem is. Also starting to see what the design needs to be long term. And on my Notion tracker, which is very bright, which has got everything in here, I've got a few theories, like I'm calling them meta theories, but they're the theories that sit right at the top. And I'll read you the 3 core theory insights which are showing across all of my research so far, that seem to be the most substantial in terms of patterns showing up in many different areas of interviews. So I've got, creative instability can originate from mismatched sources, like an internal world mismatching with imposed external structures, or an external recognition mismatch where the world lacks recognition for the medium or the art. And it's intensified when systems lack the capacity to adapt as internal states and external conditions change over time. That adaptive return system is just not in existence for a lot of artists. Creative instability occurs when either the artist's internal creative operating system mismatches imposed structures, so that could be an internal mismatch, or the external world lacks recognition structures for the artist's medium. Creative sustainability is the ability to remain in relationship with creative work through cycles of disruption, instability, and change. It's also the ability to remain with it day to day through fluctuating moods and energies and capacities. But sustainability is also the ability to remain in relationship with your life and work through the disruption, through instability and change. So that's a kind of an updated definition. Yeah, and a lot of different observable patterns coming in. I'm also going to just try and track my wins a little bit more and track when something lands with an artist. I've got my second online webinar tomorrow, in 2 days. But it's the first one where I'm announcing the entire structure and system of the internal layer of the self-led artist, which is called the self-led practice. I did call it the artist's internal system to start with, but it didn't have a ring to it. So I'm calling it the self-led practice. And the question that runs through everything I'm doing for the next decade plus, I'm sure this is such a huge question, is what conditions, structures and practices allow a creative life to sustain over time? Yeah, and that research will keep coming. And as I've said in previous videos, I've got the plan to interview at least 500 to 800 artists over the course of however many years it takes. It's going to be a long journey, and the self-led artist might evolve to the point of changing brand, name, system. 100 plus interviews down the line, God knows what this is going to look like. But the question will remain, and my urge to get to the bottom of it will stay the same. That's why certain people are like, how can you, they're like, I'm getting suspicious a little bit of you saying this is a 10-15 year journey, and I've had to assure them that, like, I've never felt like this about something before, and I trust my intuition. At 33, I know when something lands the way that this has. This isn't going anywhere. This is my question to solve. And that sounds intense, but it is. And the question isn't going anywhere, and it needs an answer. So yeah, that's where I'm at.